Spoiler warning for Loki, Episode 1. Hello, I'm the Infinity Theorist, Quake spin-off enthusiast, and Episode 1 of Loki surprised us all. Was Tony's, Vision's, Gamora's, and Natasha's sacrifices for nothing? The TVA had multiple variants of the Infinity Stones, and what did they use them for? Paperweights. Today, I will talk about this and some more things that happened in my review and analysis of Loki, Episode 1. So before I tell you the things in my notes, let me just explain how/when Loki takes place. Short answer, yes and no. Long answer, 2023, but also 2012, but also no time at all, but also all time always. If you understood any of that, congratulations, you're just as crazy as me. No, but more seriously, this variant of Loki is from a branched timeline created when he picked up the Tesseract. We'll call that branched timelines 2 in this video for simplicity's sake. So after the Time Variance Authority, or TVA, took Loki to their headquarters, which exists in what the comics call the null time zone, they use what is called a reset charge on timeline 2. This resets the timeline. I don't exactly know what this means, but I have a few ideas. One is that it just completely deletes the timeline, which would solve that problem. Another theory is that it just resets the timeline to the point of the Nexus Event and prevents the Nexus Event from happening. One more theory is that it just reroutes the timeline back on track. Either way, this branch of reality is gone. Because it is gone, we now have a variant of Loki stuck with the TVA in the null time zone. He is different from the non-variant version that died in Infinity War. And since the null time zone takes place outside of time, the show takes place at no time at all, but also all time always because of the same reasons. And also the multiversal time travel, which is what I'm really excited for. Alright, so the first thing I have for you is not a particularly good thing. I'm sad to announce that the Marvel Studios intro now comes with a skip intro button. I know. It is a crime that this skip intro button even exists, but applying it to the Marvel Studios intro, it's terrible, especially with the new Loki music. So, this episode confirms that the TVA gets rid of any branch of reality by a certain point. Since we know that the MCU movies are canon to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the TVA never showed up to reset the timeline, I think we can assume that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon. That would make all the other shows canon. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is part of the sacred timeline, and no one will convince me otherwise. When Loki's taken to the TVA, we can see a Skrull variant talking to Casey. I think this is a pretty interesting Easter egg. Oh, and also people all over the internet have speculated that we also saw Peggy Carter, a Peggy Carter variant later in the episode. After Loki signed to verify every absurd thing he has ever said, he took a reCAPTCHA I am not a robot test. This reminded me both of reCAPTCHA, of course, and also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Specifically the LMD arc of Season 4. Even more specifically, LMD May. She was the one who thought she was a real person. She was the real person. She's the one who blew up the playground base to save the team. I just thought this scene was a reference to the LMD arc, though it's most likely referencing those reCAPTCHA and those choose all pictures with traffic lights tests that I still don't fully understand. Is it even reCAPTCHA or is it just CAPTCHA? I still don't know. Temporal aura. Loki is scanned for it after the robot test. I don't know exactly what it is, but I have seen some theories. One says that this is how the TVA identifies different variants, but I don't think that's what it is. Mobius tells the TVA to scan the gum for hints of temporal aura, meaning that not all things have it. Maybe it is only on living things. All I know is that it's important, and I'm really hoping we learn more about it. The most important scene in this episode was probably the animated sequence in which Miss Minutes explains the idea of variance. It was jam-packed with hints, Easter eggs, and hidden meanings. A theorist's dream. The first of these was when she indicated a multiversal war. If you're a fan of the comics, you probably know where I'm going with this. If not, let me tell you about a little story called Secret Wars, not to be confused with the 2005 series that introduced us to Quake's Secret War. Secret Wars Battle World is a story in which variants of all over the Marvel multiverse fight each other. This is due to the fact that someone brought them all into a single place called Battle World. That sounds pretty important to me. Maybe we're getting a Secret Wars story soon. plot hole I noticed in this scene was the fact that the MCU, a version of reality with its own official reality number, does not have a multiverse. The comics have a multiverse. The MCU is supposed to be part of that multiverse. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has a multiverse. Well, if both of those are canon to at least the Marvel multiverse, how does this work? Well, I have two theories. Theory 1. The Marvel multiverse is on a separate plane of existence than the MCU. Another timeline that has its own branches. Earth 616 is my guess for the sacred timeline there. Earth 616 is the comics version of that, probably. And the multiverse sprung from that timeline, but the branches never got big enough to interfere with another multiverse. And the branches did get big enough to create their own timelines with their own branches, so that the chronomonitors in the comics can have one timeline each. There we go. See? Okay. This would explain how the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 5 and 7 timelines can still work. They are branches of another multiverse. The quantum realm and the monolith of time took them to an entirely different multiverse with a different sacred timeline. This would explain how Deke Shaw can live safely in any of the three timelines. Yes, I'm still trying to shove Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. into canon as much as I can. The second theory I have, admittedly, one that doesn't include AOS in the MCU, so yes, I prefer theory 1, is that the comics, the Spider-Man movies, the X-Men movies, and all of the other Marvel multiversal things are the ancient Marvel multiverse Miss Minutes told us about. The ones that battled each other for supremacy. Neither of these theories have much evidence, but they're just what I think could explain the scene. When Miss Minutes explains the sacred timeline, you can see a little curved line coming out of the main timeline that goes backwards and eventually joins back in with the rest of the timeline. I don't have much evidence, but I think this is the point in time where the Avengers went back to retrieve the Infinity Stones. That'd be a pretty interesting inclusion. Miss Minutes explains the idea of variants. I will simplify this for you if you're still confused. So, a variant is a version of a person that doesn't belong. They did something to make the timeline split, which created a branch in time. This creates another universe. A multiverse, even. A variant is the person from the new branch, our new Loki Variant, L1130, picked up the Tesseract, which made his branch of reality defect from the sacred timeline the Timekeepers created. I still hate the idea of the sacred timeline because the Timekeepers basically killed off every single living thing in their sacred timeline on purpose. Anyway, our Loki Variant's branch was reset by the TVA, so that branch of reality doesn't exist anymore. The TVA is preventing a multiverse. While explaining variants, Miss Minutes brings up the words Nexus Event. A Nexus Event is the event in which a variant splits the timeline. Loki's Nexus Event was him picking up the Tesseract. If the word Nexus sounds familiar, well, it should. It was said in my personal favorite episode of WandaVision. It was the commercial in episode 7. The Nexus antidepressants. People, including myself, have speculated that that must have meant Wanda was a Nexus being, meaning she can travel the multiverse at will. And while I still think that's possible, I'm thinking it might mean something else. Maybe the sacred timeline, our beloved Earth 1999999, I always have to count the 9s on my hand, has just deviated from the sacred timeline that the Timekeepers created. What if Wanda's Hex reality wasn't supposed to happen, and this is a Nexus event? What if the TVA doesn't exist by the time of WandaVision, and they can't stop this Nexus event? Remember, Loki takes place during and after and before Endgame, meaning it is still on another 3 weeks until WandaVision. I may be totally wrong on this one, but think about it. That's how WandaVision will tie into this little multiversal saga of WandaVision, Loki, Spider-Man, No Way Home, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Speaking of the Multiverse of Madness, a Nexus event that isn't reset would create a multiverse, and as Ms. Minute says, this left unchecked would make the multiverse go into madness. That sentence That tells us so much about Doctor Strange 2. We know that he'll be dealing with Wanda Maximoff, who most likely went insane reading the Darkhold, and the title tells us all we need to know about why. WandaVision created a Nexus event, and now we are dealing with a multiverse constantly splitting itself into more branches. This proves my previous theory right, at least to some degree. WandaVision might have, after all, been the multiverse setup that we all hoped it would be. The TVA's motto is, for all time, always. I think this is referring to the fact that they exist at all points in time, always, and they are trying to keep the sacred timeline from splitting into a multiverse. So they're saying that they protect the flow of time and to protect time itself, and that they're always doing it. I think we just found our new Captain America this episode. Wait, wrong series. Anyway, Mobius said something that both of our Captain Americas have said. They're just a kid. Steve was referring to Wanda, Sam was referring to Carly, and Mobius was referring to the kid from France in the 16th century. Oh, I think we finally found Mephisto now, people. Right, in this episode, wait, wrong show again? Really? Anyway, the kid from France said that the devil gave them the blue gum. This could, of course, be Mephisto. Definitely Mephisto. There's no other devil I can think of. Yeah, of course, I'm joking. There are a few others I could think of. One of which is Loki himself. The most likely option. The variant of Loki the TVA is chasing. Not our main focus, Loki. Another one of my guesses is Nightmare, but that's not a very good guess. The last of my guesses is Ghost Rider. Again, not a very good guess. The Ghost Riders we've seen said they've all made deals with the devil. No, the most likely of these is the variant of Loki that will probably be a villain of the show. I'll talk about who this variant of Loki might be later in the video. That doesn't make much sense, but you'll catch up. We learned that the TVA resets a branch of reality before it gets to the red line. I think this red line is where another Nexus event will happen if nothing is done about it. That is probably the most obvious thing ever, but still just explaining in case you need it. Loki's TVA file confirms him as gender fluid just in time for Pride Month, and this is an important thing because it is both accurate to Norse mythology and could introduce us to Lady Loki. If you're wondering how the former is true, it is because the Norse myths and in the MCU, Loki is a shapeshifter. Loki immediately figures out that the Avengers mess with time, which was supposed to happen, and in a hilarious turn of events, assumed it was to prevent his rise to power. And he tries using his Frost Giant God of Mischief powers, which don't work because this is the TVA and it exists outside of magic. Maybe they should have apprehended Wanda Maximoff when they had the chance. Loki is sentenced to be reset, and we learn it was never his story to begin with. Then Mobius helps Loki get out of certain death. Loki threatens to burn the TVA to the ground, which I'm actually half hoping for, and Mobius shows Loki the entire TVA. It's a massive city in what appears to be a metallic sphere existing outside of time. One theory suggests that it exists in the quantum realm. There's so many buildings and everywhere, it's kind of hard to believe there isn't magic. They literally have flying cars in there. Well, I guess that's not that surprising considering Lola exists. Mobius mentions that nightmares are another department. This could be a reference to the character Nightmare that was theorized for WandaVision and has been theorized about for Doctor Strange 2. Mobius specializes in especially dangerous variants. I think this might be a reference to Kang the Conqueror, who is confirmed for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Kang is a future version of Iron Lad that conquers other realities through time travel. Mobius is drinking a Josta energy drink, a Pepsi brand soda that was discontinued in 1999, which I find that pretty interesting. Loki's "freedom is a lie" quote is kind of confirmed by the just by the existence of the TVA. They dictate the proper flow of time according to them, which doesn't give people choices. If you think about it, this kind of proves Fitz's theory that everything has happened already and time is the fourth dimension. Right. This would explain how the null time zone works. It exists in a four-dimensional space that looks 3D because of the variants they need to be able to understand the place. And this four-dimensional space creates time, creates the paper, let's say, the paper stack that Fitz made, and that is the timeline, but it does sometimes branch off because this is the fourth dimension. And they cut off those branches. Speaking of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I was right. There was a memory of Phil Coulson. That is something I was undeniably right about, because I said that there would be at least a Coulson cameo in a memory or something. See my prediction video for more details. Anyway, at this point, Coulson is still dead. Remember, he was dead for days. This is still the first day. Also, Mobius never specifically says that Coulson died. If Coulson does indeed get revived and AOS is canon, Loki will never know that happened. Also, Coulson will still die around the same time Loki did anyway. If Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon, Mobius didn't mention the fact that Coulson was revived, possibly because it would ruin the proper flow of time if Loki was reset. Which, maybe. Loki ended up being D.B. Cooper in the MCU, the mysterious 1970s plane hijacker that had a bomb and stole a bunch of money. This was apparently because Loki had lost a bet to Thor, the best answer to a plane hijacking mystery I have ever heard. We learned that the TVA's plan for Loki was to cause pain and suffering so the others could achieve their best selves. If you think about it, he was kind of the hero in that way. He was a villain in the Avengers, and from there, he was created to be an anti-hero that kind of accidentally helps everyone. It's still a terrible thing for a person to learn, though. It sounds like incredibly painful information. Oh no, alright, here comes the devaluing of the entire Infinity Saga. Casey's drawer, with its 6 realities, 7 time, 2 soul, 1 space, and 4 power stones. This devalues the entire MCU. The TVA could have given them to the Avengers easily. Don't tell me that they don't work out of their respective universes theory, because we know that's not true. We know our new Loki variant is from a separate branch of reality, yet we see both the Mind and Time Stones from his universe used to both bring back the people who were blipped and to defeat Thanos' army. The TVA has many, many variants of these. I'm sure one of Casey's colleagues has a Mind Stone laying around somewhere. They could have given these Infinity Stones variants to the Avengers. It's not like they had a shortage of them. Agents of the Time Variance Authority, I do not trust you. And I am very angry at you. Well, I think I can forgive Casey at least, because he didn't know what the stones were. He and some of the guys just used them as paperweights. But all the other TVA hunters still incredibly angry at you. Yeah, Casey and some of the guys used them as paperweights. Useless, all-powerful paperweights. Oh, and on the note of the Infinity Stones, the one Loki picked up was the Time Stone. I think this is just a little nod to the fact that time is going to work differently now because of the time travel and the multiverse. This show is about time travel and the multiverse, or as I like to call them, green and red. Green for time, red for reality. We see the TV that monitors the timeline that we saw in the trailer. Casey works nearby it. Though, instead of showing us the multiverse of madness, it only shows us Earth 199999 at the time of picking Loki up. That's when Loki asks the question, is this the greatest power in the universe? And Casey just nods like, yeah, pretty much. Just, if you paid attention to Casey, you know what I'm talking about. Loki looking back at his file was an emotional scene. To make it even more emotional, social media had to point out that file is an anagram of life. Loki had to witness his father, his mother, and his own deaths in one day, just for it to be called a file, like one of those manila folders you'd put in a cabinet. Loki doesn't enjoy hurting people. As he said, it's an illusion, caused by the weak to inspire fear. Then Mobius tells us it's a desperate play for control. Loki calls himself a villain, and Mobius says that isn't the way he sees it. I don't think that's how Marvel fans see it either. Loki isn't a villain. As I said before, he's kind of an anti-hero. Not exactly a hero, but not exactly a villain. Just somewhere in the middle that kind of helps both sides. The TVA needs help from Loki because they are chasing a Loki variant. Most likely Lady Loki. Sophia DiMartino is confirmed for the show, and footage from the trailer suggests she is also Loki. I also believe Lady Loki is the hooded figure from the end of the episode. The results in the sequence period make sense. Early 3rd millennium. That's the first 4 or so centuries that have 4 digits and start with a 2. Loki's from 2012, which is the very early 3rd millennium. They're from about the same time. It's also kind of obvious as Lady Loki. At the end of the episode, she picks up the reset charge, which I think is what's going to cause the multiverse to erupt. Branches of branches the main time, and all these are now going to be able to exist because the TVA is busy dealing with this one Loki variant. Now for the credits. A picture from the credits tells us there are 2 types of TVA workers, hunters and analysts. An example of a hunter would be B-15, the one Loki time-twisted around the TVA when they were in a fight. And an example of an analyst would be Casey, who seems to not do field work as much. We see a chronomonitoring notebook in the credits. In the comics, the chronomonitors were a group of TVA workers who sat in a room with an infinite amount of space and an infinite number of desks. The chronomonitors were each assigned a different timeline to monitor. If needed, they would cut off a branch of the timeline they were assigned. However, it seems the MCU is going to use the term to mean something different. I think this time it's going to mean TVA employee in general, because all of them are working to protect just this one timeline. There was an apocalyptic event report in the credits. I don't know what it is yet, but I think the paper said something about a plane hijacking in 95. There was a pamphlet in the credits I found kind of funny. It was a "So You're a Variant" pamphlet. I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of the Phineas and Ferb movie, I guess, and I found it kind of funny. Before we get into the review, I would like to mention that I have a podcast. It's called Infinity Theorist Unscripted Rants, or ITUR for short. I mostly talk about fandom, but sometimes I'll go off topic, or just plain not know what I'm talking about, or what to talk about. Don't worry, you'll get used to that. It is available wherever you get your podcast, and there's a link to it in the description. Hey, while you're down in the description, let me tell you about Infinity 600, a project for a world record. This is a project I created as a kind of internet community thing. There'll be 600 participants, and every participant will contribute 1 hour of footage that will be edited into the longest video on YouTube. If that sounds interesting to you, sign up. It's completely free. Full rules are on the website. Just a few more things in the description. My live channel, my Instagram, and my TikTok. I do live stream sometimes, very rarely, and also very rarely, I post on TikTok. I do post on Instagram, not very often, but more often than the others. Now for the review. First, the title review. This episode is called Glorious Purpose. Or, sorry, you gotta say it with the accent. Glorious Purpose. That's the best I can do. I think this is a good title for the episode. It kind of shows us Loki's change over the episode, from being burdened with glorious purpose to my purpose is to cause pain and suffering. I love the title. It's great. I'll give it a 91 out of 100. I think this was a good start to a show. It had so many different things that normally wouldn't be in a premiere episode, like the Infinity Stone thing. It was ambitious, and I praise it for that. I for sure had a lot of fun with this episode, so that gives it a 93 out of 100 for a raw score. That score averages out to a 92 out of 100. A very good score for the first episode. I think it is probably worth maybe a little bit more than I give it credit for, but I'm still mad at the TVA a bit. Alright, I know this video is late. It's fine. I'll make it up. Alright, I'll make up the episode 2 review as soon as possible. Alright, you can watch another video by clicking the top left, top right, and bottom left corners of the screen. But before you do that, click the bottom right corner of the screen to subscribe, and then click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos like this. More reviews, more theories, just some good fun stuff. Once I get to 50 subscribers, I'm gonna do a 50 subscriber special. That's gonna be fun. Alright, so yeah, that is everything I have for you today. Goodbye.